Greetings. I hope everything's going well today. I am here. Everybody's here that's joining us today. So let's go. Uh, this is really a dive into the topic of developer experience. And let me tell you a little bit more about that to sort of set the stage for what we're trying to accomplish here today. Getting things started, my name is Jason. I work in the areas of developer experience or developer relations. My goal here is to learn, basically, learn about new tools, technologies, and at the same time, to kind of look at it through a lens of, hey, what's working really well when getting started with a new technology, and what are areas for improvement or things to be on the lookout for if I'm building my own thing. With that in mind, I do try to follow and remind a little bit of a code and conduct. If anyone joins us today and has comments or anything like that, the goal here is to be kind. Having a really good developer experience is hard work, and a lot of people are probably pouring a lot of energy into making anything I look at better. And sometimes, feedback helps us get better, especially if delivered in a productive and helpful way. Really, it is a spirit of being a little bit more growth oriented. Of here's the areas for improvement and where we can focus some attention. Um, so where this notion of the whole show and what I'm trying to do, I am going to reference the fact that this comes and give credit where it's due. Um, in an old API days talk, there was this notion of using 333 as a litmus test for the developer experience around an API. This sort of originates with sort of some of that communications, marketing, advertising mindset of, hey, you really only have 3 seconds to get someone's attention, right? The spirit here is I have a day job, I got other things to do, but maybe there's a new technology that'll help me solve a problem for me, jobs to be done, those sorts of things, right? I really don't have a whole lot of time during an evaluation, so really maybe you only have 3 seconds to really explain what the API is for, 30 seconds for me to find how to get started and begin, and really only 3 minutes to go all the way through that, creating an account, executing a call, and using the result. Some people refer to this metric or this KPI as time to hello world. I think 3 minutes is super aggressive. If I actually have a problem I have to solve in building a thing, I'm probably not going to give up after 3 minutes. I'm probably going to at least have a little bit more persistence than that. And I don't mean just 5 minutes as opposed to three. So I sort of think of this as the first 30 minutes or hour of me exploring a new technology and trying to get a sense of it. I think is a fair point that if those first 3 minutes are super, super rough and I have a nice alternative in mind, I might go try that one first. I think, again, that rule of three, if I'm evaluating a technology to make a technical choice or an important architectural decision, I'm probably going to have three candidates. I mean, that's, if I'm doing, any service I'm looking at, I'm probably going to give, a opportunity for a few alternatives to be evaluated. Um, yeah, so that's the idea, and with that spirit, that's why I'm also doing this at 3:30 p.m., at least my local time, Pacific time. A few more notes about why I am streaming this in the first place. So there is this notion of customer zero testing, which is really about improving the adoptability of a product by having someone who's not necessarily your target customer testing it. Usually, an organization will have people who don't directly work on building a thing, and they become very good test subjects. It's much better than testing, something in production by saying, "Hey, I just built a thing, future customer that'll change my life. Here it is, go use it." Having not really done any other testing of it. This is also not to mistake. This is not about quality control or like quality assurance. It's really about the adoptability. How does it all come together? The documentation, sample application, dashboard, and website and portal, as well as the design of the APIs and SDKs that you're asking someone to use. How does that all work together to solve a problem? And I think the other lesson that'll come through some of this is it's okay not to know how to do something, right? Like I am using tools I know very little bit about. I may not even know a whole lot about the space. But sometimes, if I'm put in that position, I have to go adopt technology. I may be in that uncomfortable position a number of times. But the point is that by picking someone who doesn't know how to do something already, that removes us a little bit of that curse of knowledge and kind of through the eyes of a beginner. The other part of this is really setting up a scenario where it's an unexpected use case or a real world scenario. Because again, if you think of QC testing, that probably is a hey, given this input, we expect this output. And if that's all you're testing, what happens when someone actually throws you a curveball? So the other outcome of some of this is hopefully learning resources, right? I might struggle during the onboarding, but the net net of that struggle will be something that might help somebody um, avoid it and get to their goal a lot faster. And the way of capturing some of this feedback is can be referred to as friction logging. The notion here is that when adopting a piece of technology, can you keep a log, like a written log of things that slow down the process of getting to the goal? So that might be things that are just frustrating to use or complex or may seem unnecessary to the end user to get that result, something that's maybe just not easy to understand or when it's difficult to figure out what the next step to take would be. And so this is a good opportunity. This is something that when I've worked with teams trying to get new members doing this, and then using that those observations to learn, especially if you start seeing multiple people having the same problems, that is a trend. And when we introduce new features or update documentation, all those things, right, most tools are not just sitting there. Either entropy is in the environment around them is changing, or we're making improvements, which could mean that whole end-to-end process changes. One other, tip I have when doing things like friction logging, instead of taking screenshots and copying error messages and things like that, and then annotating them, um, I've actually started encouraging more often just recording the session. So sometimes that means setting up a video conference call and just hitting record and only having one person in the session, just sort of monologuing what they're seeing and what they're doing. And that's more or less what this show's about. That is what I'm doing. Instead of just making it a video conference recording, however, I decided, hey, why not just do it in public? If someone joins and has questions or observations while I'm going through it, that might be interesting and make it a little bit more of an enjoyable experience as I go through some of these technologies. Um, yeah, so that's the notion behind friction logging. So these shows will be around 3:30 p.m. Pacific time, give or take. Streaming some different topics and different shows across different channels, but generally go to developerxp.com and you can find a schedule. So today I'm looking at Ably, but I'm also a couple of other words I've heard other people make suggestions for solving certain problems. Find as an AI search engine, I was going to look at next time, and in Directus, I heard lumped into the category of headless CMS. So it's again 3 seconds. What is that thing? So I'm going to go try to find out a little bit more about them as well. But for now, in terms of Ably, let's go. So I'm going to try to make this as readable as possible. So I'll zoom in a little bit more. Um, I apologize if it's not the greatest quality, but it is what it is as I explore. So I think typically what I do and when I'm evaluating a technology, um, I search for it, right? So what is Ably and why am I interested in Ably? So, yeah, I think this actually came onto my radar a couple of times, but most recently I saw that they were running a hackathon. So I was thinking, hey, I don't know anything about this tool. Why don't I go figure it out? Now, that may not mean I submit anything to the hackathon. That's usually if I'm participating, that's not the point of me participating. I just want to learn something about it. So that's what I'm gonna do. But I typically search um, uh, right off the bat, right? Like I could infer ably.com. Maybe I'm at the hackathon site or somebody says, hey, go check out Ably, and maybe they send me a link. I do tend to like to search because it tells me a few things, and this is why SEO can be very important in terms of how things show up. So sorry, I am also going to go ahead and start a timer here just to, time box exactly how much time I'm trying to learn how to use a tool. So anyways, one thing it tells me is also competition. Usually, like if I'm searching for a company, or competitors are probably trying to hop on that keyword. So it gives me a little bit of information about that. I will also hopefully find the actual, URL. Sometimes it's as easy as a .com or a .dev or whatever, but there can be surprises. But it might also give me some noise, right? Some things that are completely unrelated, or it might give me some third party input. And I think when I'm evaluating a technology, right, like third party inputs probably very influential on me, right? Either, it's not too often I'm told you must go use this as your solution to such a problem. I'm usually, it's usually the other way. It's like I have such and such a problem. What are my options? And if I don't have peers or friends who have used something to recommend it to me, it basically means I'm going to go ask strangers on the internet, should I use this tool or not, and what is it? So that's the importance of SEO right off the bat. Even just from a developer experience point of view, that is part of the experience, is the environment in which I find and or use something. Um, then I get to the website. Depending on whether it's a purely technical product or a variation of something like that, may indicate what I expect to find here. Um, so I think there's some truth to the matter that, um, at least for me, when I go to a site like this, I'm going to assume it's mostly marketing copy. And it does answer a few questions for me, though. So I don't completely dismiss, though a lot of times I may go and jump to like a documentation site and try to find something else. It also depends on what stage I'm at in learning. Like if like a decision has already been made, I need to know this tool. I might approach it from a very methodical top-down learning and really explore the navigation. If, however, I'm trying to create a prototype and I don't want to, spend the next week on it, I might try to take some shortcuts and just cut to the chase and try to figure out how to get moving on it. And I think that's what this time is really going to be about. So, that said, I want to know a little bit about it. So, Ably, real-time experience infrastructure that just works at any scale. um, what is that? So that's an example. Does this tell me much, or what does it tell me? Real-time experience infrastructure. So it's telling me real-time is important, but SDKs and APIs to power real-time capabilities like chat, data broadcast, data synchronization, multiplayer collaboration, and notifications. So right off the bat, to me, this is the more meaningful bit. That it's a messaging framework for passing data, probably something of that sort. Um, I do sometimes look for these ribbons as proof points, right? So, like, if I'm going to sign up or try to use a service, are they going to be around for a long time? Is anyone else using them that I trust? And so here, right, there are some really good proof points right off the bat. Any one of these companies, that might mean there's like one person in some small department, but still, that does suggest somebody else used it at some point and probably gave permission to use the logo there. Other things I do look for, and actually this is kind of encouraging as well, is that there is a diagram here. I bring this up quite a bit. I do look for some diagram or a picture that helps me understand what parts am I building, what parts does this solve, and what other services might I have to use altogether. This one looks a little bit more complicated than I thought, and usually these are marketectures. Um, but so chat, data broadcast, so okay, so this is all front end things, 25 plus SDKs. I probably don't need all 25, but it's good to know. Yeah, pub sub channels. So again, that kind and push notifications that kind of reinforces what my assumption was around the problem being solved here. Um, Global edge network redundancy. Da, 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 da. So maybe they've solved this in a way that is more efficient and then me setting up my own message broker, so I can get behind that, or using something that a cloud provider has out of the box. Excuse me. Yeah, so backend managed by me, this managed by Ably, this is public internet, over WebSocket connection, and there are integrations and connectors. Okay. And this is, yeah, see, this is actually really well done, right? Like, this is the idea. Public internet, here's the stuff they solve, here's the stuff I have to solve. And typically, lately, doing a lot of web applications, so seeing JavaScript here makes sense. I'm not doing something more complicated than that right now. It is just that. So let's see, giving me some examples of things, some proof points and quotes. It's always a good sign when people are willing. This adds a little bit more truthfulness to the list of banner ads, right? When you have people actually willing to go on the record, say good things about you. Da da da, bunch of stuff, some proof in numbers. Da da da. Okay. Start in 5 minutes. That immediately jumped out at me. So I'm going to go ahead and click that and see where it takes me. All right. So presumably this is the docs quick start guide. I sometimes like to, I don't know, this might be a me thing. The path to information is something I often remember. So, I was on a quick start guide, being able to get back to it. I guess I could go back to the homepage and look in the footer, and it's not on this footer here. But I'm actually a little surprised I lost the navigation in the left. So, um, so if I were to come back and go able.com docs, I'm not in the same place. So I'm going to go back because this is okay. So it's the pub sub channel. So that's the home pub sub channels spaces. What is this space? That is my question. Collaborative environments, high level APIs for managing the data related to members collaborating synchronously. Okay, so that's the live cursors, avatar, stacks. Okay. Um, yeah, so maybe that's the okay. High level APIs. So above the pub sub messaging frameworks, we've got things that take into account the actual usage. So that's kind of what I don't. I probably gone off the rails a little bit here, mostly because I thought it was interesting and I'm trying to get oriented. But I do like the simplicity. There's not a whole lot of information thrown at me in the navigation, but it's like sort of giving me more use case based examples. So I do appreciate that quite. Oh, that's interesting. So I get it. What is spaces? Is this the same page I was just on? Product spaces. It's not. Huh. So when I come here, I get the product page. And if I click here, I get what is it? That would seem to. I feel like something changed there on me, but that's okay. I don't want to get distracted by it. But enables you to build collaborative environments in your application. What I was going to say is I was trying to figure out whether okay, this is an SDK that's built on top of the other SDK. that gives you these things. So does this handle the UI or just the data exchange? Like, is this like the idea of it's defining entities for me in a way that would be sensible and well thought out so that I don't go and invent something on my own? I, that might be a nice thing. Okay, but let's not do that. Let's go back to the pub sub channels. I bet this was the quick start guide where I started from. Um, I don't know if, there might be an assumption that I've read the basics. What is it? How to use it? Getting started. I'll also note I don't have an account yet. I assume that I'm going to get reminded to do that here very quickly. I am starting with the mindset of I do have a use case in mind where I do want to do some interchange of data, and I am convinced I will need an account. So I do have a decision here. I don't know if I'm consistent or what other folks do, whether I'm just going to go ahead and create an account right away or whether I'll start the quick start guide. My assumption is I'm going to get a little ways down the quick start guide and it's going to tell me I need an account or a key or something anyway. And again, I think those assumptions come from the idea that um, a lot of other apps do it that way. So therefore, whether it's even the right thing or not for any given user, it sets my expectations. So I know I can sign up for free here. There is one other little detail. Whoops, that's too far. That's not how far I wanted to go. Around pricing, um, I, there is this notion to developers or people who are actually building a thing care about pricing or not. And I think that depends on your persona, right? Like if you're, my mindset in the project I have is a little bit more of that entrepreneurial developer type of mindset. So I do have to think about pricing, but I also have to think about timing and whether I even have something that's viable or not. So that does lead to this notion of, well, I put in the effort to use something free, right? Like, I mean, there are messaging brokers out there I could, set up and use on my own, run it on a server somewhere, and that might be cheaper than using a service, but that would probably require a lot more of my time to set it up and build. Um, Conversely, I want to know I can get my app up and running for free. Um, I don't want to really incur a lot of costs while I'm still building it. Once I've launched, then presumably I now have an opportunity to have customers that might pay me money. So I think there's a tipping point at some point, but knowing that 6 million messages a month sounds like a lot. Like that sounds more than reasonable. 200 concurrent connections, no credit card required. Yeah, that's right. So this is ideal for I think my use case. And then $2.50 for 1 million messages. I'll have to do some spreadsheet modeling and things like that to figure out what my actual messages would be. Um, I'm not thinking about chat, but actually some of the things that they listed in spaces is actually appealing to me in terms of what I might be working on here. So um, okay. Well, anyways, that gives me a thing. So let's see what the sign up process is like. So again, 3:33, I had 3 seconds. I already kind of knew it was in the real time messaging space. So, it verified that for me pretty quickly. 30 seconds to find an entry point. I mean, the sign up button was there all along. I decided to explore just a little bit more before actually committing to an account. So, anyways, I can go ahead and do that now. I've already done some of this off screen, um, but let's go ahead. Okay. Oh, I know why. Maybe I'll change my password over here. Password Matt sure gave me one that. Oh, I like this one better. Okay. Still just okay. Well, whatever. I am not a robot. All right, we'll go ahead and sign up. All right. Can you tell us a little bit about how you plan to use? Oh, okay. So create an account, your use case, verify email, create first app. Um, um, u- Users who are online. Um, Sorry, it's a little unusual. Way busy here. Okay. So I should be getting an email to confirm. Got it. Verifying. All right. I'll just switch over here. There we go. So now I've verified, and now I'm at the point of creating my first app. Developer XP. Sure. What kind of app do you want to build? Broadcast real time event data to millions of devices. No, not really. Not doing live chat either, although may at some point um, do something. Notifications, yes. Collaboration, that will maybe come up, but no, not for now. Synchronization, no. Also doing a bit of exploring. Yeah, and that's probably true too. All right, we'll go ahead include them all. I don't know, so that was just a couple of steps. Nothing seemed too onerous. It had me thinking a little bit more about what I'm trying to build, but also setting my expectations, I guess. I don't know what happens the fact that I checked more than one and whether, so now, in my mind, is this my one app or is it, a feature of my app and that I would want to separate those? I assume, one domain, one app kind of correlation. So even if I have different features, that's fine. So I don't know that answering that question, whether that's going to give me or some assumption, or if it just helps inform their team what types of features someone's interested in. Either way, it's a good practice. Um, you know, um, one way of using something like that I heard, is sort of this painted door idea, and I really appreciate the thought that went into proposing those types of solutions where there might be features that you don't necessarily offer yet, but by providing them in a onboarding experience like that, you can also judge what people are expecting and how important something is to add. Anyways, I see I got an API key I can copy here, which is great. Um, so presumably this is my account dashboard for a specific app. And so this is now me exploring a little bit settings, billing, limits, usage. So presumably each message, I should be able to get myself a report of how much I'm using it. Billing, if I were to need to add a credit card on file and move to a pay as you go, that gives me a pathway. Um, my access tokens, so on. Okay. API keys. Is that any different than what I was just looking at? RSA, URW. Yeah. Okay. Well, this is kind of interesting. There's two different keys with different resource restrictions and capabilities. It's coming back here. If I were building chat, not building chat. So let's move on. So those don't. Um, I could see why a lot of people might want to do that, but that's not what I'm really looking for right now. Typing indicator, chat privileges. Okay. Multiplayer collaboration. Maybe this is closer to what I'm looking at. Live sync also would be valuable. Yeah. I don't know if I would use this for that, but yeah, that makes sense. Broadcasting information. Yeah. like notifications. Yeah, notifications is probably similar. And then quick start guide. Okay. So I mean, at this stage, I'm still just exploring things a little bit in the dashboard. That probably means, in my mind, I'm probably doing this because I'm a little bit more committed already, even though I haven't done the quick start guide. But let's go ahead and jump over there. So let's get a feel for what it's like using this and the quick start experience. Yeah, there's a couple of different schools of thought here. It might be let me try something out, like a demo right off the bat, um, and see how it responds. But I don't know if that's necessary. I do like this presentation, this type of doc format that lets me kind of flip things around and look at things from a different context. I wonder. Oops, I didn't really mean to do that. Kind of curious. What tool is being used to create this one. I'll have to look at that later and see if I can figure out what doc platform and or tooling they've done and how much of it's customized versus just available. But anyways, welcome. Um, Include a client library, real-time connection, subscribe to a channel, publish a message to the channel, close a connection. And any quick start, you have to make assumptions about your users and what they've done. So I have done some PubSub stuff before. It's been a number of years. I think last time was like Red Hat's Cupid or something like that. I used as the messaging broker, um, but someone may not know what the concepts are at all. But anyways, create an account, got one already, add the client library SDK. So, oh, that's right. I switched up. Let's go back to JavaScript because I'm actually going to do a web application. Um, so actually, I got another message. I think this is actually a good opportunity to maybe show something like this. Um, I got an email from them. Thanks for creating an account. And here's some links. I think this is a really good practice is to make sure that after somebody has signed up for an account, just a very brief, but here, download an SDK. So here's the place to go find the downloads, discover features and their use cases, follow a quick start guide, or here's the documentation. If you want to chat, there's a Discord server. And here's a link to the dashboard to get the API keys. Those are all things I need to know right off the bat. So I think that's nice. I'm kind of curious where the discover features takes you though. So let's go ahead and explore that. Because that quick start is going to take some time for me to actually build anything. So let's just take a moment and say like, hey, is there a demo I can just run? Is that what this is? Okay, so this takes me to, is this a blog post or a tutorial? Okay. Well, this does tell me something. I didn't necessarily, sort of that message durability idea. They're referring to it as rewind history here. I think that's important, which means, an activity feed type thing would work. But, it's kind of interesting. Yeah, this article was written like, yeah, I don't know what to make of this quite yet. Is this like intended to be a blog post? I like the TOC that's sort of following where I am and highlighting it. It's a really nice design. I'm just gonna sort of throw that out there. Um, you know, content is king, but something that's functionally designed and gives me context to where I am is actually pretty nice to see. But yeah, this seems to give me like kind of guidance on, that's why I keep reacting to the URL saying examples, but I can't actually see an example other than maybe this little screenshot. Um, but it does present, here are the benefits, and here's maybe the high level what I have to do. Um, and it gets into some of the technical details, but I feel like it's you know Yeah, yeah. Step 3, implement UI, consider integration. Like this is, I guess, in an overall, project planning perspective, this is the right information. I mean, I've got step 6, profit, right? But there's not a whole lot of detail there. And in some ways, this like step 2, there's a fair amount of detail, and maybe that's the right amount, but it also feels like maybe it's not enough. Like it almost feels super specific. I don't know. Um, I feel like I'm missing something from this page I was looking for, which is just something that's a little bit more of a example that I can use. But that's okay. Coming back here, quick start. Now, one of the things I am so I'll learn how to include the SDK, establish a connection, pub sub, and close the connection. That feels like the right scoping for a hello world, and giving me a feel for what it's like. If you're running the guide in JavaScript, all right. Um, Create my account, add the client library. So I guess I gotta. So I do have my IDE here. I'm gonna go ahead and start just some scaffolding here. So I guess I have to decide right away what's going on here. How much scaffolding do I need? Can I do this just like with a single HTML file that I'm fumbling around with, or do I need a front end and a back end to try this out or not? Um, I don't necessarily expect the tutorial to tell me that, but I think that's where I'm trying to see what's on the page to understand, how far along, right? Like I have an app I'm working on. I don't want to necessarily pull this into that right away, because then if I don't want to use the tool, then I have to pull it back out. So I want to work in, maybe I could create a fork of the project or something like that. Or more likely, I want to have some sort of bootstrapping that I can go and start exploring the capabilities and layer new solutions on. So it doesn't seem like that's given me that piece here, and that's okay. Maybe if I was doing React, just create a React app and you would know I have some common infrastructure. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a try and just say, let's assume that I just have an index HTML file for now. And excuse me. And I'll just smooth that to the side. Um, I just don't want to do anything too fancy yet. So I'm not going to bother with CSS and those sorts of things. I'm just trying to say hello world. So let's go ahead and pull it in from a CDN. I appreciate that. Um, and you know, you see this pattern quite a bit. And, you know, for a quick start, it's not appropriate to necessarily explain it. But if, ever think about it, like this is, I don't know how else you would do it here other than saying, hey, pull it in from the CDN so that you're always using the latest. Of course, in your production app, you're probably going to want to pin to a version or something just to not have, risk from a dependency, which is then why you go to npm install. So I don't know. I mean, this seems clear cut to me. I know I've worked on tutorials and things where I've had people come back and say like, "Well, explain what NPM is," and all those sorts of things. But I think you have to draw a line somewhere around how much you assume someone knows, right? Like I know I've written a tutorial before that it was started with, "Hey, just run a curl command," and then someone comes along using Windows and um, something I maybe didn't expect, or and doesn't have curl installed and has to sort those things out. So that's the other reason I say it's like it's really hard. If I run into a problem, right, like it's not a terrible thing, or a terrible travesty. Getting this stuff right is really really hard. So you need to authenticate to establish real time connection, typically over WebSockets. Um, do. Okay. Connection example, basic authentication. So presumably I can copy that. And here we'll just do see that. Okay. So we do that and then maybe run did I what am I doing? Hmm, okay. Um well, let's just keep plugging along. I'll have to wrap that around. Maybe I don't want to do it in an index HTML file just to play around. I guess that's well, anyway, subscribe to a channel, publish a message, publish with the REST API, close the connection. So I see. Okay. The other nice thing I've seen this, this happens quite a bit now, or pretty common, that my key from the dashboard is already inserted into the sample code. Super convenient. Um, I think for situations like this, it can be a little surprising, but at the same time, super convenient. Especially since, like in this example, I'm just doing some JavaScript on the fly. Um, yeah, I guess I gotta. Um, then it's gonna be spilled out in the client code. So that's the point. Like presumably, I'll have a server component that's the intermediary area at some point. So let's see. Um, Man, I wish I had water here today. Sorry. I don't know if it's just really dry, mm, or if it's just the time of day. Um, um, yeah. So, anyways, how do I want to do this? Oops, like that. That's correct. I remember. Oh my goodness. I always feel, I find that when I code, I almost always am looking at an example, and when I'm not looking at an example, even the most basic things, it's pretty embarrassing when I mess things up. Um, so okay, connected to Ably. All right, this is maybe I can make this a little smaller. It's all about real estate on the screen. I actually haven't, obviously another monitor, but well, this is gonna be awkward. That's fine. All right, so I just have an HTML file, and what did it do? So yeah, there's my part of my key. You can see. Sorry, I guess I will have to rotate that. But anyways, connect. Da, 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 da. So that's a connection. Then you have to subscribe to a channel. So all channels would presumably have a name. Okay. Ably channels get. I don't know why I decided to type. Sometimes I think I will type instead of copying and pasting just because that helps me think about it and get used to working with an API or SDK. Um, and so I think that's actually, done well here is that there are smaller code snippets. Subscribe to a channel. All right, so that gets a channel, and then once I've have it, then I have to subscribe. Okay. Okay. So presumably I'm connected and I don't have a message yet. So this means my web app is subscribed, but now I need to publish. Um, and I could do it from a separate application. Like I could maybe wire that up to a button. At that point, I'm probably now bringing in a framework. My framework of the day tends to be Svelte apps, um, or it could be a React app. They have specific React examples here. That could probably speed things up if that was what I was using in my end product. But it seems like I can probably just copy this curl command and run it. But then something happened. But I didn't see anything over here. So it's supposed to say, so I'm subscribing, quick start, subscribe, greeting. This is sending name, greeting, data, channels, off all dry. Is that supposed to be quick start? Eh, What is, um, hmm. Yeah, I don't know if it worked or not. Like, at this point, I guess, maybe to a certain extent, if that would be loop and I want to, that's just, never mind. That's not it. So we'll wait, subscribe for greeting, then log it, and then that's it, probably, right? So I'm waiting for a response, but yeah, so what do I do? It's probably not me. Um, I think there's, so the first thing I have is this: am I publishing it to the right? Is this the URL off all dry? Like that just doesn't look correct to me. Is that? Oops, I already had it open. Or is it that the expectation here is that I'm in a loop that the app will be updated, or is it have a permanent? See, it resolves when the channel is attached. Hmm. The reason I liked this was because I didn't want to have to set up, the app to get me, wire up a button to actually post the message or whatever. So in some ways, to me, that feels like a nice way of structuring this because then it's disconnected. But I feel like I'm missing something that's supposed to be obvious here. Um, and so the first thing is that, yeah, the endpoint. Is that actually their endpoint channels off all dry, or is that the resource? So I do still feel like maybe the quickest way is if I were to take that off and say, or is that supposed to be quick start? That's oh no dash there. So okay. Hello. So all right. Well, that's good news. I got it working. It is unfortunate that there was a minor glitch. So if I go hello world developer XP just to verify. Yeah. Okay. So the connection is persistent. It's not exiting when I receive messages. This was just a minor little detail here that this should have been quick start, not off all dry. So just a little minor inconsistency. Okay. And all that said, then presumably I also need to close the connection. So let's see what happens if I sort of repeat this process. Does it close after the first message, or can I send two again? Cool. So close connection. Yeah. But really, I don't want to close it until. So in terms of like structuring an app for real, we need to handle that. But I mean, I still feel like the basics are in place here, and that's fine, right? Like the SDK itself seems simple enough that and so the second time I ran it, I don't get it because the connection's already closed. No, sorry. So yeah, so I think as far as a quick start guide, I got the basics. I did get my hello world. I know what they're doing, and I kind of know where to go next, right? Like so, if I can send messages, I can send whatever I want to meet my use case. I could read a little bit more about what to send in that package, right? Like, can this was data. Like, what is the structure of this data? What am I allowed to send? Or is it just key? So greeting was the topic, right? Is that what I'm no. So there's a name of a channel, quick start, and then there's a topic, greeting, and then there might be a message. But I guess it's a question: is this message? Might it be a JSON object? Do I have to serialize that myself as a string? Like, do I have to do the marshalling to pack and unpack it? So there are still some questions I have in terms of really using it, or is it need to be just text only? What is the size of that? I'm sure all that information's here in the documentation, but those are probably the things I'm gonna have to figure out next to figure out how to use this for real. And that's okay. All right. So I think success. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the timer because I think um so maybe that took me 45 minutes or so to kind of walk through. Um, there was a little bit of a bug in the quick start guide, but it was a minor enough bug. And, it took me a little bit of time to figure that out. So ideally, that wouldn't be there, but it's not too big of a deal because I think the SDK actually, or at least the API to it seems like a pretty clean, logical, intuitive design. So and in terms of like a restful connection, like that just makes sense now, right? There's the REST endpoint, there's a channels API, and then it takes my value. um, I wonder if it's striped based on user though, right? Like yeah, I don't know how that, because it's text there as opposed to like some UID. That surprises me a little bit, but that's okay. Um, yeah, okay, yeah. So I do like some of those examples. So I'm gonna have to keep playing around and see how far I can get in answering some of those questions I still have. As far as a quick start though, that wasn't. It gave me some satisfaction. I was able to make it do a thing. And because I sent with the REST API and received with the JavaScript SDK, I know I have um, something that I could feel pretty comfortable as working. And, I don't know how to structure my application yet, if there's any expectations there. But presumably, you know, keeping it general purpose. So whether I'm using React or Svelte or Vue or whatever, the information that was presented there should work. Right? It's not coming across as opinionated, so that's good. Um, all right, yeah, that's it for today. I think success was had. So hopefully I'll have a blog post or something about what else I learn and do with this API in the future. So stay tuned and subscribe to the channel or check out developerxp.com to see when I'll be on again. It's probably 2 days from now. Sorry if there's any background noise being picked up. There's apparently a motocross convention outside. All right. Have a good day. Enjoy the rest of it.